Now we're back up to our favourite path at this stage. A beautiful day. Look how difference it makes. After some rain, everything's just so green. The trees that were once dry, still see little bits of it there. They started to make a comeback, although it looks like that one might not make it. But overall, the Australian bush will recover from some degree of drought. If these are pine trees, they probably would have long since dried out and died. Beautiful afternoon, looking across the gorge and back out northwards. It's quite steep coming up here, but I think you can understand why I love this area. It's always visually stunning. Not grand like, say, Mount Everest or anything like that. It doesn't even come close to that. But just a beautiful region, beautiful part of the world. And it's so accessible too. You don't need to travel overseas unless you live there. And you don't need special equipment. You can just come up here for a walk and enjoy the day. Even on a Friday afternoon, which is a normal working day, I noticed a lot of people coming in out of the car park, coming up here, making it quite a popular attraction. Not many people go to this part of it because it's not quite as reachable as some of the other sections in it. Takes me about an hour or so to walk here. I don't have to worry about locking cars or anything like that. I can just go up here for a walk and enjoy it. We're still climbing uphill. You can see the trees there suffer fairly badly. Getting a bit of canopy back on. Gotta watch I don't trip over either. Water tends to wash down these paths a bit, creating erosion. So they sometimes need a bit of maintenance to get gravel put back in or rocks. The area can be a bit clay-like and sticky if it's wet. And the other sections are like sand from the beach. Probably from the quartzitic extrusions that are found around the place. They weather down to make a gritty, sort of a clean white sand. I've just found a koala bear. I'll see if I can spot him for you. Look at this. There he goes. Hello there. Having a nice day, are you? I'm only about 3 meters away. That's unbelievable. I'm not even running away. We don't ever see it down this low, do we? Yeah, you're off to now, are you? They're quite big, really. Oh, you're so beautiful. And you're going to go off anyway. They do walk around a fair bit. They get down in the suburbs and into our front yards. Sometimes the fire brigade has to be called in because they climb up a tree. It's no good for them and they can't get out. Not very often though. Beautiful animal. I wonder where it's going. Anyway, I'll leave it alone now. We've seen that. How anything. For those of you perhaps viewed my earlier video on YouTube, you might recognise this corner. We went up there and came along the top, back down that way and through into the suburbs. This time I'm going to go down that other path, which for me is a bit more hairy because it's got a lot of edges on it. But it can't be that unsafe, otherwise I wouldn't let people use it. But I've never been a great lover of heights, as you know. I've just gone past the spot where that koala was, so it's already made my day seeing that. You don't get to see them very often, not down on the ground anyway. They're usually up in trees sleeping and they're hiding amongst the branches. You can't see them half the time. It's hard to believe this is one day after the shortest day of the year and I've only got a t-shirt on. It can be very cold here, like any place. Especially overnight. If you get caught out, you can drop down to 0 degrees or below. But with the sun being out and a nice still day, you can see there's hardly any wind blowing. It's really quite pretty. May not show up in the video, but you can see some of the outer harbour area or the Gulf area of where Adelaide's ports are. The first sailing ships used to come into there a couple of 100 years ago or whatever and set up the place, but it was a pretty lousy joint then. It was all muddy and horrible. They've had to do a lot of dredging to get it right. As you can see down there, it's quite a drop. We'll actually be going back down into that gully. This pathway leads around and drops down in that gully and comes out of the rear car park at Marietta Falls, so it's quite a nice area. And again, you can see the Australian native grasses here and trees. These leaves, as I mentioned before, are very hard and spiny. They're fresh too, but the older ones get really prickly. I think kangaroos might eat them. A sheep might eat it, it'd be about it. They're fairly thorny sort of things. But that's how they survive out here. There's some more of it over there. I don't know what it's called, but it's quite a lot of it around. Just amazing, these trees, even though they're dried out looking old things, starting to make a bit of a comeback. See how the new growth comes out the side of the trunk. Often in a bushfire, the whole lot will disappear and you get new growth coming out of it like that later on. That's how they regenerate. A pine tree will just burn off and has to be cut down, which is sad. They don't do that. But a lot of Australian eucalypts will survive some degree of fire and drought and all sorts of other things. And you see from the slope of the hill it's reasonably steep. That's about the true angle of it. But it's just such a beautiful afternoon to be out doing something like this. Just down a bit further along this pathway, I reach a sharp bend. And I hope I don't stumble. Then you're confronted with, well, a stunning view like that. Of course, the shadows of the afternoon sun probably hides some of the features, especially on a camera like this. But it's truly amazing. There was rumour of putting a cable car across there to go from one top of the area to the other side, but I think the public outcry is so great that they never did it. There's one in Sydney in the Blue Mountains, that's a spectacular one. I think this one would be just about as good if they ever did it. But whether it's a good idea or not, I don't know. I'm not here to judge that. But the path here starts to get a bit steeper and a bit more windy and very pretty, as you can see. But after a rain and a bit of winter, everything just comes up so beautiful now. It's not looking dusty and all the rest of it. Makes you wonder where this thing ever goes, this path. It's certainly going now. You can see it's a hell of a long drop down now. Would like to fall off of that. Certainly would like to be going through over night time with no torch or anything. I'll sign off there. Oh, a bit dangerous holding a camera and walking down the hill like this at the same time. It's quite steep. I think you've seen a few stills of these. The grass trees, they've got a fairly long name. The trunks have been burned in a bushfire. So obviously even a fire's got up here despite the fact that it's rocky, but over there you just get this incredibly spectacular view. I just climb over this rock so I don't trip over it. Oh. Right across there, you may or may not be able to see it, there's a lookout. I was there the other day and I tell you what, it gives me the heebie-jeebies standing on that. I know the heights, and then that path follows her around. You almost see the line where that path goes, and it goes right back through to the gully over there, then you go down that steep track. Down in that area further down there, hidden by the tree, there's a little narrow pathway that goes up to the top as well. I've done that once, but I found it's been getting overgrown, and it's much more like this sort of stuff here, a bit rocky and things like that. So it's been a while since I've done that, so I don't know if it did any good nick or not. I certainly wouldn't do it in summer because it'd probably be full of snakes. Look at these grass trees, they're just magnificent. That has to be about 300 or 400 years old. They are so slow, these things to grow. And just around this corner here, if I get past these bushes without getting killed, there's a rocky outcrop. Ouch! Prickly bush too, and a bit of a cave, which doesn't go back that far, but some people get into it. There's a few of these around here. Goes back about 3 meters. It's got a bit of a smoky roof, so obviously somebody may have lived in there once upon a time. Had a fire going. I can imagine the Aboriginals, the original Australians, probably living in something like this for the time being. It's hard to know. You can get around these corners here a little bit. This stone here I think is more of a sandstone. It's quite tough and fairly resilient. It's not soft like the limestone, so it's amazing how you get these different sorts of stones. Another small cave around there, and looks like a collapsed grass tree over there. Again, these wretched olives are here. Another burnt out stump. You can't get around there, but I can't be bothered doing that. It's a bit dangerous, I think. And also heading back, there's a few more of these sort of outcrops on the way down too. Quite spectacular. And you can see across the valley a bit more there then too. The way down, there's a lot of places. The path divides up here, I think. Yeah, that's the same grass tree from a bit earlier. As you can see, it's had a fire in it. It's quite big. Goes right over me. Very slow growing, like I said. Give me a bit of an idea where we are now. That way it leads around. I eventually think it goes to the second falls. I did that the other week, but I didn't video much of that. It was quite a hair-raising experience going around now. As I said before, I don't really like heights a lot. But for those who can be bothered, it's quite an amazing area. Even over there, if you can see in that detail, there's a couple of caves. You get the rocks that just fall out and it leaves a bit of an opening. Anyway, I'm going to head back this way because it's a bit shorter than going around the other way. Another lot of grass trees. These particular trees are found throughout Australia, and they tend to grow in the more dry sections like the northern sides of hills where you get most of the sun. On that side where it's shady, you don't see them very often because they don't get a lot of sun. They tend to prefer the full sun environment. There's a few more from there too. If anyone's caught stealing them from the park, you can get your throat cut just about. You can buy them in shops that have been grown or been legally taken from the wild, but they're around $300 or $400 for one specimen. Oh, yeah, I don't know if that'll sharpen the camera or not. I'll keep the sun off it a bit. Looking back towards Adelaide, that is just so spectacular. There's even a pine tree stuck in there somewhere too. That is just so beautiful. This pathway. I reckon my next life I might come back as a mountain goat. But I'll be heading down there. And that glistening stuff's part of the car park, the main road in. Fantastic area. Just come back along here. And you see there's a foul drop off on one side and a rise on the other. Gradually moving away from that area. You still see down in the car park, there's still got a bit of a height to go. Anyway, it's time for me to head back home. Be a good little boy in time for tea. Just go around a few more corners and zigzags and all sorts of things around here. This is a nice time of the day to do it in the afternoon, except for the hot weather. As you can see, it's a bit of a drop off down there too. Now we're going from sandstone to slate, and it's quite a, seems to be fractured, but it's actually quite sharp. Probably from all the layers when it was originally laid down. Sometimes lizards live in these. If you're lucky, you might find a lizard. And they like to live in places like that. Oh boy, it just goes round and round and round. Yeah, the other danger, of course, is falling rocks. Somebody throws a rock and hit you in the head, would be the last thing you see, probably. Oh, there goes the lizard there. I just saw it then pop down the corner. Wouldn't be recommended going down over there. Probably fall down to a bit of a drop. You can see there's a bit of a debris scree from where rocks have fallen down from up here. They still get a fantastic view. Look at that. That's just wonderful. Anyway, I'll continue on. Can't get too carried away.